My daughter's fiancé was secretly planning to steal everything, and I caught him. I noticed it the third time. That was when the questions stopped sounding casual and started sounding rehearsed. Every visit, without fail, Evan found his way to the kitchen window. He would wrap both hands around his mug, stare past the pasture, and let his eyes settle on the thin line of cottonwoods near the horizon. "Where exactly does the land end?" he asked, voice light, as if geography were a hobby. The first time, I shrugged it off. The second time, I told myself curiosity wasn't a crime. The third time, something tight and instinctive twisted low in my stomach. By the fifth time, I was counting. Evan always asked when Lena wasn't listening. Lena laughed it away whenever I mentioned it. "He's just fascinated by rural life," she said. "He's lived in Denver his whole life." Maybe. But fascination doesn't repeat itself with the same wording, the same timing, the same eyes fixed on the same invisible boundary. I had spent 4 decades as a structural analyst before retirement. Patterns were my language. And Evan's pattern was too clean. I met him 6 months earlier when Lena brought him out for late November. Snow on the ground, frost in the air, the house still too quiet since Maribel passed 3 years ago. Illness doesn't announce itself politely. It just arrives and rearranges everything. Evan was 34. Well-dressed, careful smile, firm handshake. He praised the food, asked about the property, listened more than he spoke. Too balanced. Too measured. People who are genuine don't calculate how genuine they appear. After Maribel was gone, this place became very large and very quiet. 200 acres outside Crested Butte that had once been scrubland, purchased decades ago when no one wanted it. Now? Developers called monthly. I never answered. This land had been Maribel's vision. I wasn't about to turn it into someone else's profit. Lena understood that. She grew up planting wildflowers where the grass refused to grow. After the funeral, she came every weekend, afraid silence might swallow me whole. When she met Evan at a professional event and started glowing again, I was relieved. She'd survived heartbreak before. She deserved calm. The engagement came fast. 4 months. A ring that sparkled just enough to look intentional but not reckless. Lena called me breathless. I said all the right things. But my mind went back to the tree line. The ceremony was planned for late September, right here. Guests. Caterers. A planner who spoke in spreadsheets. Evan volunteered opinions often. "We could clear that western edge," he said one afternoon. "Open up the view." "That's the boundary," I replied. He smiled. "Right. But where exactly does it stop?" That night, after they left, I unlocked the drawer I rarely opened. The deed. 215 acres. Purchased in 1994 for $80,000. Today? Conservatively $4 million. Possibly more with zoning changes. Lena didn't know the number. She never asked. What she didn't know extended further than land. During my career, I'd patented a refrigeration component so unremarkable it barely made headlines, and quietly paid for everything afterward. Royalties. Investments. Accounts that compounded in silence. 8 million, give or take. I lived modestly on purpose. Old truck. Repaired jeans. After watching relatives tear each other apart over estates, I learned early, money reveals people faster than truth ever could. Evan was asking questions that didn't belong to curiosity. The next morning, I called Harriet Colson, my attorney. "I need a background review," I said. Quietly. She paused. "Is this about Evan?" "Just precaution." 3 days later, Harriet asked me to come in. Not by phone. She closed the door, slid a folder across the table. "Everything checks out," she said. On the surface. Then she opened a second file. 2 prior engagements. Both short. Both ended immediately after access to financial discussions. No accusations. No lawsuits. Just timing. Wealthy families don't litigate. They erase. My throat tightened. Harriet leaned forward. "If he believes Lena stands to inherit this land, he may be gambling on time." That night, Evan asked if I'd considered long-term planning. Trusts. Power of attorney. "Just being responsible," he said. I smiled. And decided I needed proof. I didn't confront Evan. Not yet. People like him don't crack under questions. They slip. Slowly. Only when they believe they're winning. So I let him believe exactly that. The following week, he came by alone. Lena had a late meeting in Denver, and Evan said he wanted to check in on me. He brought a bottle of wine I never drink and that same controlled smile. We sat in the study. He chose the chair closest to my desk without asking. "I've been thinking," he said, folding his hands. "About the future. About making sure everything here stays stable." Stable. Such a careful word. "I've managed investments for a long time," Evan continued. "And I've seen what happens when people don't plan ahead. Confusion. Taxes. Outside interests circling." He glanced toward the window. I nodded. "And you're concerned?" "Only because I care," he said easily. "About Lena. About you. This place." He slid a slim folder onto the desk. Empty, except for a few printed charts. Generic. Trust structures. Estate pathways. If something unexpected happened, he added gently, it would help if someone could step in. Temporarily. Just to keep things running. I studied the papers, then looked up. "You mean authority?" He smiled, relieved I'd said it first. "Assistance." That was when I knew. No one offers help like that without already rehearsing the outcome. "I'll think about it," I said. His eyes brightened. Not greed, anticipation. After he left, I didn't touch the folder again. I locked it away and made another call. This time, to Nora Pike. Nora didn't advertise. She didn't need to. People found her when they ran out of comfortable options. Former compliance analyst. Private investigator now. She listened without interrupting, then asked only one question. "Do you want confirmation," she said, "or do you want leverage?" "Both," I answered. Within days, Nora had Evan mapped. Not illegally, methodically. Patterns of calls. Meetings. Travel. The kind of work that lives in the margins. The call came on a Tuesday evening. "I have something," she said. "You should hear it yourself." She came to the house after dark. We sat in the study, lamps low. She placed a recorder on the desk. "This was captured during a service appointment," she said. "The device is legal. You won't need to worry about that part." The recording clicked on. Evan's voice filled the room. Relaxed. Amused. "Yeah, I'm at the property again," he said. Playing the devoted partner. Another voice laughed. Male. Confident. "You sure it's worth it?" "Absolutely," Evan replied. I checked the county records. 200 plus acres. Bought cheap. Developments creeping closer every year. And the owner? Lives alone. No debt. Old school. Doesn't flaunt anything. Which usually means there's more under the surface. A pause. Glass clinked. "Once the paperwork's in place," Evan continued, "it's just a matter of time. A fall. A scare. Something that justifies help." My hands clenched. "And Lena?" the other voice asked. "She trusts me," Evan said without hesitation. "By the time she understands, it won't matter." The recording stopped. The silence afterward was unbearable. Nora didn't speak. She didn't need to. "He plans to wait," I said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "And he's done this before." I felt anger rise, sharp, tempting, but anger clouds precision. I needed clarity. "I don't want revenge," I said. "I want truth. In front of witnesses." Nora raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking about the ceremony." "Yes. Risky. So is silence." The next 2 weeks passed in careful performance. I met with Evan twice more. Asked questions. Let him explain. Let him feel useful. He brought more documents. Power of authority forms. Trust drafts naming him as overseer, in case of necessity. I signed nothing. Instead, Harriet prepared something else entirely. Protections layered so tightly they couldn't be undone without my direct consent. Assets isolated. Authority restricted. Everything locked. Evan never noticed. The night before the ceremony, a man named Calder arrived. Evan introduced him as a longtime friend. Best man. Nora had already sent me his file. They laughed too loudly at the rehearsal dinner. Confident. Relaxed. Evan raised a glass. To new beginnings. I smiled back. The morning of the ceremony arrived clear and bright. Mountains sharp against the sky. The land quiet, as it always was before storms. Guests filled the chairs. Music played softly. I stood at the front row, heart heavy, knowing this was the last moment before everything changed. As the officiant began, Evan looked flawless. Calm. Certain. Then Lena reached into her bouquet. She handed me a folded note. 3 words. Please. Don't let this happen. I stood. Stop, I said. And the truth finally had a voice. The crowd froze. The string quartet faltered, notes hanging in the crisp Colorado air. Guests shifted in their chairs, confused. Whispers rose like a tide. Evan's smile faltered. Robert, he said, careful. What? Stop the ceremony, I repeated, louder. Now. Lena's eyes were wide, pleading, tears threatening to spill. She had trusted him, believed in the fairy tale. And now the truth had to pierce that illusion in front of everyone. Evan's hand twitched toward hers. I stepped forward, gently taking her wrist before he could. Stay there, I said, calm but firm. From the back, 2 men in plain clothes stepped forward. Calder had been unmasked. Nora had coordinated quietly with local authorities. She had arranged for officers to be nearby, dressed in plain clothes, blending in with the wedding staff. Every precaution, every step had been planned so Lena could see the full truth herself. Lena, I whispered, read it. Read everything. She unfolded the note again, lips trembling as she read the words I had penned hours earlier. I heard him. Everything he said about you, about me, the property, he plans to exploit it. Her gaze shifted to Evan. You, her voice cracked. You said I would inherit everything. And you were plotting? Evan tried to speak. Lena, this is. I held up a hand. No. Not here. Not yet. The evidence needed to speak for itself. I pressed play on a small device I had hidden in my coat pocket. The recording filled the space. Evan's voice, confident, calculating, unmasked in front of 200 guests. Every word about the property, about manipulating Lena, about orchestrating an accident to gain control. Every lie and plan laid bare. The room went silent. Gasps. Some people clutched their pearls, others took a step back. For a moment, Evan looked like he could vanish into the air, but he couldn't. Not here. Not with witnesses. Not with proof. Enough, he finally hissed, rage bubbling beneath the surface. This is private. Not anymore, I said, voice low, sharp. You brought this to the public. Now everyone knows exactly who you are. From the shadows, the plainclothes officers stepped forward, restraining him without struggle. Calder, his supposed best man, tried to flee. Patricia, who had been disguised as a server, intercepted him before he reached the driveway. In seconds, both men were controlled, detained, powerless. Guests murmured, some frozen in shock, others clapping quietly in relief. Lena sank to my side, trembling. They would have taken everything, I whispered. You and this land would have been gone before you even knew it. She buried her face in my shoulder. I didn't see it. I didn't want to. I know, I said. And that's why you needed to see it for yourself. You needed to understand the truth, not just trust me. The officers led Evan and Calder away. Lena and I were left in the quiet aftermath, the wind rustling through the aspen leaves, the mountains stoic and indifferent as ever. I held her hands. You're safe now. You always were, but now you understand why. She nodded, tears streaming down her cheeks. Thank you. Dad. For everything. I let her lean against me for a moment. This was the real ending Evan never imagined, not victory, not wealth, not manipulation. Just clarity, justice, and safety. For the first time in weeks, I felt a weight lift off my chest. The danger was neutralized. Lena could rebuild her life, her happiness, without fear. And I could finally exhale, knowing the threat had been dismantled before it ever reached her. The sun was setting. Golden light spilled across the ranch. Guests slowly gathered around us, some whispering, some shaking their heads, all witnessing the fall of someone they had never truly known. I realized then that justice doesn't always come from punishment alone. Sometimes, it comes from the revelation of truth, from the clarity of understanding, and from giving someone the chance to protect themselves. Lena looked up at me. What happens now? Now, I said, a faint smile forming, we rebuild. We plant new memories. And we make sure nothing like this ever happens again. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the weight of vigilance turn into the quiet satisfaction of a plan perfectly executed. The threat had passed. Justice had been served, not through anger, but through foresight, preparation, and courage. And Lena had learned something that could never be taken from her. She could see the truth, and she could act on it. The following days were a strange mix of calm and chaos. The police had taken statements, verified the recordings, and confirmed that Evan and Calder's plans were criminally actionable. Lena insisted on helping organize everything, determined to reclaim control of her life. We spent hours reviewing every gift, every account, every document that Evan had manipulated or tried to manipulate. It was exhausting work, but there was an odd sense of relief in it. Each checkmark on the list was a tiny victory over someone who had thought he could control our world. Every corrected error, every revoked authorization, every reversed transaction was a reclaiming of freedom. Lena and I often sat on the porch after long days, watching the Colorado sunset turn the sky gold and purple. The garden bloomed wildly, just as Linda would have wanted, roses climbing trellises, the air fragrant with lavender and jasmine. Lena would trace her fingers over the petals, deep in thought, and I could see her processing the storm that had nearly destroyed her peace. "I feel different," she admitted one evening, her voice soft. "I thought I could trust everyone. I thought life was predictable. And now, I feel awake." "You are awake," I said. "And that's the best place to be. It's painful at first, but it's powerful. You've seen the truth, and now you know how to protect yourself. That's a gift, Lena. Not many people get that chance." She nodded, resting her head on my shoulder. "I wish Mom could have been here to see this." "I know," I said, squeezing her hand. "But in a way, she is. Everything we're doing, this garden, this home, this protection, is because of her vision. Because of her dreams." Over the next few weeks, Lena slowly rebuilt her trust, not just in herself, but in me and in the world around her. She started taking small trips, reconnecting with friends she had neglected, and even tentatively dating again, though with a new caution born from experience. I watched her carefully, proud of her growth and the wisdom she had gained, but careful not to intrude. The ranch itself became a symbol of our restored life. We repaired the old barn, added a greenhouse, and planted a new section of the garden, honoring Linda's memory. Every plant, every stone bench, every flowering vine was a reminder that the life we'd built was ours to protect, to nurture, and to enjoy. One afternoon, as Lena and I were moving a wheelbarrow of soil together, she looked up at me with a mischievous smile. "Dad, how rich are we, really?" I laughed, wiping sweat from my forehead. "Rich enough to live well, but not so rich that it ruins us. Linda and I invested wisely, yes, but we also lived modestly, and that's part of the gift. Money protects you, but it doesn't define you. Remember that." She shook her head in disbelief. "I can't believe I didn't know the full story all these years." "You didn't need to," I said. "You were meant to be yourself, not some pawn in a game of wealth. Now you understand the stakes, and you can choose how to live." We worked in silence for a while, the rhythm of labor and nature grounding us. The past chaos of Evan and Calder's schemes felt distant, a storm that had passed. And yet, the lessons lingered: vigilance, clarity, the courage to see truth and act on it. Weeks turned into months. The garden flourished in every season, and the ranch remained our sanctuary. Lena's confidence grew, she became more assertive in her career and social life, always mindful of the people she trusted. I continued to live quietly, modestly, enjoying simple pleasures, grateful that the danger had passed and that our family, just the two of us now, had survived intact. Late one evening, as the stars emerged over the mountains, Lena asked quietly, "Dad, if I hadn't given you that note at the wedding, what would have happened?" I paused, letting the night air carry my words. "It would have been harder. Much harder. But we would have found the truth eventually. The evidence, the recordings, they were always there. You just gave us a little nudge. And sometimes, the timing of courage matters more than anything else." She leaned against me, content and thoughtful. I never want to feel that helpless again." "You won't," I said. "Because you've learned the most important lesson: awareness is power, and truth is your shield. You'll carry that forward, and you'll never be caught off guard like this again." That night, as we locked the doors and closed the blinds, I felt a profound sense of peace. The fear, the tension, the threat, it was all behind us. And for the first time in years, I could imagine a future that wasn't shadowed by deceit or danger. We had survived the storm. We had reclaimed our lives. And for Lena, the world was suddenly full of possibilities, clear and unbroken. The legal proceedings began quietly but efficiently. With all the evidence in place, the recordings, the financial documents, the surveillance footage, Evan and Calder had no room to maneuver. The district attorney reviewed everything meticulously. Every meeting, every plan they had executed, every attempt to manipulate or intimidate was on record. Evan Hutchinson, once confident and smooth, was suddenly a man exposed. His charm had worked too well on others, but not on us. Calder, the supposed best man and co-conspirator, realized too late that his complicity was visible to every law enforcement eye. Both faced multiple charges: conspiracy to commit fraud, attempted financial exploitation of an adult at risk, and other related offenses. The courts didn't take long. They were prosecuted efficiently, their criminal history and repeated patterns of targeting wealthy families laid bare. The courtroom was tense, but for Lena and me, there was a sense of quiet vindication. Each testimony reinforced what we already knew: our suspicion was right, our patience justified, and our trust in careful preparation vindicated. The judge acknowledged the meticulous evidence collection and imposed penalties that reflected the severity of the crimes. Evan received probation, restitution for the investigative costs, and a lifetime ban from financial advisory work. Calder, though less central, served time for his role in the conspiracy. Justice, though procedural, was satisfying. Lena returned to the ranch slowly but surely. At first, she stayed in the house, keeping to herself, walking through the garden, watching the roses bloom, and feeling the quiet security of the land that had been nearly stolen from her. She enrolled in therapy, rebuilding the emotional foundation that Evan had sought to destabilize. Slowly, she ventured out, reconnecting with friends she had distanced herself from during the whirlwind of the engagement. For my part, I remained steadfastly in the background, giving her space but always available. It was tempting to share every financial detail, every patent and asset, but I had learned long ago that the power of knowledge lies in when and how it's revealed. She had survived deception, betrayal, and danger. Now it was time for her to understand her own strength. The ranch itself became our sanctuary. We repaired the barn, planted a new greenhouse, and expanded Linda's garden. Every rose bush, every stone bench, every vegetable patch became a symbol of resilience. Nature, as always, reminded us that life could regrow even after being trampled by chaos. One afternoon, Lena and I were restoring a section of the fence near the western edge, the boundary Evan had so obsessively questioned. She looked over the rolling meadow and asked, quietly, "Dad, do you ever feel angry still?" I thought about Evan, about the months of preparation, the looming threat he had posed, the manipulation, the danger. I felt the anger rise for a moment, but then I let it pass. "Anger is wasted energy," I said. "It's better to use that energy to protect what you love and to enjoy what you have." "I've reclaimed my peace, Lena. That's more important than revenge." She nodded thoughtfully. "I think I understand. It's like, we survived it, and now we can choose what comes next, instead of letting them control it for us." "Exactly," I said. "Freedom isn't just about being safe. It's about choosing your own path, and not letting anyone else define your life." We worked together for hours, repairing fences, tending roses, and talking about the future. I realized that the ranch wasn't just land, it was a legacy of love, perseverance, and the life Linda had dreamed for us. Protecting it had become our shared mission. And Lena? She transformed. The fear and uncertainty that had once clouded her judgment gave way to clarity. She embraced her career with renewed focus, cultivated friendships with those she could trust, and even began dating cautiously, this time with the lessons of experience guiding her. Evenings on the porch became our sacred ritual. We would watch the sun sink behind the mountains, the sky awash in orange and purple. The garden's flowers glowed in the golden light, a quiet affirmation that life, like nature, always finds a way to bloom again after winter storms. One evening, as the stars emerged overhead, Lena spoke quietly, "Dad. I feel like I finally understand why Mom wanted this place. It's more than just a home. It's a protection. It's a legacy." "Exactly," I said. "And now it's yours to live in, to protect, and to build on. You've learned the hard way, but that knowledge makes you powerful. You'll never be caught off guard like that again." She leaned her head against my shoulder, content. I finally feel free. "And that," I whispered, watching the sky, "is the best justice of all. Not punishment. Not revenge. Freedom and the ability to choose your own life." The danger had passed. The threat was gone. And for Lena, for me, for the life we had preserved, the world felt wide, open, and full of possibilities. The weeks after the arrests were surreal. The media caught wind of the story, though I made sure to keep Lena's name out of it. It was enough that justice had been served. Evan and Calder became cautionary tales, examples of how greed and manipulation eventually collapse under careful planning and evidence. But for us, the real victory wasn't headlines or courtroom rulings, it was the quiet reclamation of our lives. Lena returned fully to the ranch, reclaiming the space her mother had loved. Each morning, she walked through the garden, tending the roses, watering the vegetables, and watching the mountains glow in the sunrise. The ranch was more than land, it was a living reminder that patience, vigilance, and love could outlast deceit. We expanded Linda's garden, planting perennials that would bloom for decades, roses that climbed trellises, and fruit trees whose shade we would sit under for years. Every plant, every flower became a symbol of resilience. For the first time, Lena felt truly safe in a place she could call entirely her own, free from the shadow of manipulation. One evening, as we watched the sun set behind the peaks, Lena turned to me. "Dad. I think I finally understand why Mom wanted this place so badly. It's more than just land," I said. "It's security. It's roots. It's a sanctuary. And now it's yours to protect, to shape, and to live fully." She smiled, a weight lifted from her shoulders. "I feel free. Like I can breathe without worrying about what might happen next." I nodded. "That's the greatest revenge, isn't it? Not punishing them. Not holding anger in your heart. Freedom. Living your life fully, knowing you've survived and can build something lasting." The lessons lingered. Lena learned to trust, but carefully. She became cautious about relationships, understanding that appearances often hide intentions. Yet she also embraced life more fully, appreciating the beauty and stability that came from vigilance and patience. She began dating again slowly, testing character and intent, never rushing into trust. Financially, we ensured everything was secure. The ranch remained in a trust, with Lena as the beneficiary, and the investments, patents, and other assets were protected against any potential exploitation. It wasn't just wealth, it was the ability to live freely, without fear of manipulation. We also established a small foundation in Linda's name, supporting local community gardens, educational programs for at-risk youth, and conservation efforts in the Colorado mountains. It wasn't just about restoring what had been threatened, it was about creating lasting value and ensuring our family's legacy contributed to something larger than ourselves. Life on the ranch returned to its natural rhythm. Mornings filled with work in the fields, afternoons spent walking trails or repairing fences, evenings on the porch watching sunsets and stars. Every task, every moment carried a quiet satisfaction. Lena laughed more freely now, her smiles no longer shadowed by worry or fear. And for me, the peace was profound. I no longer feared the future or second-guessed every interaction. I watched my daughter thrive, knowing she had the wisdom to protect herself and the courage to embrace life. The ranch, once threatened by greed and deceit, became a symbol of resilience, patience, and love. One autumn night, sitting on the porch as the first frost touched the garden, Lena said softly, "Dad, thank you. For everything. For believing, for protecting, for trusting me to find the truth in my own way." I held her hand. "No one protects you like you protect yourself. I just made sure the path was safe for you to walk on. You've earned this freedom." She leaned against me, eyes reflecting the stars above. "I'm ready to live, Dad. Truly live." And in that moment, watching the mountains bathed in moonlight and the roses swaying in the chill night breeze, I realized that justice had been served, not through vengeance, but through survival, courage, and the quiet reclamation of our lives. The threat had passed. The con men had been exposed. And Lena, my daughter, was free. Free to laugh, free to love, free to grow. Free to live a life that no one could steal. The ranch was no longer just land. It was a testament to resilience, to love, and to the power of choosing freedom over vengeance. And as the stars sparkled over the mountains, we both knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, strong, vigilant, and unafraid. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Have a nice day.